going to go over the AFC North. And going to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won the division. Remember, they started off very good last year, won that was an 11-game win streak. Kind of fell apart at the end there, though. Went 12-4, won their division, lost to Cleveland in the wild card game, as we all remember. Cleveland had no coaching staff, and they were up 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. It was terrible, but they had a lot of turnover this season, so we'll go over that off season. So we'll go over that now. Lost Bud Dupree. I mean, they did lose him last half season, but lost in free agency. Lost cornerback Steven Nelson and Mike Hilton. Also lost linebacker Avery Williamson, who they did traded for mid-year, and he really never really did much for them, unfortunately. Lost longtime tackle Alejandro Villanueva. Also guard David DeCastro retired. Center Marquise Pouncey retired. Tackle Matt Filer, who we mentioned with the Chargers, signed with the Chargers, and then James Conner went to the Arizona Cardinals. And in terms of additions, brought in edge rusher Melvin Ingram. So we mentioned last episode. That's where Melvin Ingram went. So good signing opposite of TJ Watt. Traded for Joe Schobert recently too for the Jaguars for like a 6th or 7th round pick. Obviously draft wise, brought in Najee Harris first round, who's been looking good in the preseason. Second round pick tight end Pat Freiermuth, who is a very good blocking tight end. Last preseason game caught 2 touchdowns. Had some snaps with the first team. Maybe he can help with them. And then obviously also I mentioned this pick. I don't know much about him, but because of all the guys they lost offensive line, 3rd round they went with Kendrick Green at number 87. So, all right, John, you think this team can be in the conversation to win their division this year, and you think that they'll be better overall, or do you think that end of last season was kind of what we should expect from the Steelers?
I think the Steelers are a big candidate to regress pretty hard. I do not feel confident in their offensive line at all. And I know that Big Ben is always kind of been regarded as a guy who can kind of maneuver in the pocket, just make things happen, not really take sacks. But he's really old and he hasn't looked amazing the last few years. And I like his wide receivers a lot, but it's once again, it's the offensive line. It's Big Ben's age. I do like the addition of Najee Harris because I was never a big fan of James Conner. And so I think that Najee is definitely better than James Conner, but I think they're going to have to rely on him a lot more than most people realize. Just because once again, I just don't really believe in the offensive line and Big Ben at this age being able to do what he has done throughout most of his career. So I just don't really know where to put their offense in terms of the league. I feel like they could be good, but they could also be really bad if the offensive line just doesn't really work out, because as good as you can be at quarterback and running back and wide receivers and tight ends and all these things, we saw with the Kansas City Chiefs, if your offensive line can't perform, none of that matters. And they're in a division where there's a lot of good defensive linemen. And so it's going to be hard. And I don't know their full schedule off the top of my head, but I know there's a lot of good defensive linemen in the AFC, with the Broncos, with the Chargers, just some of these other teams that they're built to attack you in the trenches. And so it's going to be tough for the Steelers defensively too. I like adding Joe Schobert and Melvin Ingram, but I don't know if Joe Schobert has do we know the status on Devin Bush and him returning?
I'll look that up. I don't know, but
Okay.
I remember his injury was either really early, I think, so it's a chance he might be
Yeah,
back.
it was like week
I'll look
5.
into that right now.
Anyway, if Devin Bush does have to miss extended time, I don't know if Joe Schobert can really fully fill in for what he does. I mean, Robert Spillane sort of became the guy that really filled in, and that was just because, like you said, Avery Williamson didn't give him a whole lot. And so I think Joe Schobert's like a solid replacement, but we talk about it with like Ryan Shazier and Devin Bush, and they really like using very athletic linebackers in their scheme. Do you know when he's coming back yet?
So apparently he was a full participation as soon as training camp started a month ago. So looks like he's all systems go. I mean, there's no other reports saying that he might be held back. Like literally, there's like no reports after July. Like July was like, oh, he's fully ready to participate. So I'm assuming that means he's 100% or healthy enough
Okay,
to play.
so I mean, that's a big positive. Like they really need that because, like we talked about, and like I said, they use their linebacker to be a guy who can cover a lot of the field. And so they need someone really athletic. And Joe Schobert, he's athletic, but he's not Devin Bush athletic. Steven Nelson, I was surprised they also let him walk. He was really crucial, I think, to their defense. He was, I can't remember. I think maybe it was like Pro Football Focus, like
He's
had him
always
graded
graded
as
like top
one of the
five,
best corners in the league. Yeah.
even though he's
Which I don't think
not
he's
top
like,
five.
that good, but also I think that just shows that he is very important to what they do. And also maybe just feels like Joe Hayden's been playing in the league forever. I don't know. How old is Joe Hayden? Like the guy's been
Probably
around for
like
a long
34,
time. And
35.
so,
I'll look that up now.
I mean, he's still doing good, but I just think that losing both him and Mike Hilton, I don't know who is slated to start opposite of Joe Hayden right now. But I do have
Joe's only
concerns with their
32.
secondary. Oh, okay. I mean, maybe it's just because we've watched his whole career. I don't know. Anyway, so there's that, and then losing Bud Dupree. I think Melvin Ingram's a really solid addition, but I think that Bud Dupree's athleticism and his speed and quickness and just pop on the other side of TJ Watt, I don't think that Melvin Ingram can necessarily provide that. I think he is a solid pass rusher, but even we saw with the Chargers opposite of Joey Bosa, he just wasn't able to produce the way that he had previously when he was in his prime. And so I could potentially see the defensive line take a bit of a hit there too. So it just feels like there's a lot of position groups to where I feel like they got worse. And also they're in a really hard division. Like I think the Browns got better, and we'll talk about them later. I think the Ravens, for the most part, got better. And I already thought the Ravens were better than them last year. I know there was like that 13 game stretch where the Steelers were undefeated. Right? It was 13. I don't know how many games they won in a row. 11. Okay. Well,
They ended the season 12-4.
yeah. Well, okay. But there was one of those games. I can't remember if it was in that undefeated stretch or maybe it was like the one game they won after, but where they played the Ravens and Lamar had COVID. So they played like RG3 and then like a few, like Ronnie Staley was hurt at that point. Like they just had a lot of missing players, and the Steelers were, for I think, like pretty much all fully there outside like Devin Bush was already hurt, and they beat him by like a field goal. It just felt like this latter half that we saw out of the Steelers. I don't know. I think that it's hard for me to envision that was just like a mental like crumbling of a team. It feels like maybe they just got brought back to reality, and I think we're going to be closer to that moving forward than we will be the 11 game win streak. But that being said, I don't think they're going to be terrible. They're not going to be like one of the worst teams in the league, but I don't think they make the playoffs personally.
I think it's important to factor into is that, remember, they didn't even have a bye week because, remember, the bye week got
That's
taken
true.
from them because of COVID, because of the Titans, and that was their big gripe. So I think that's a factor to play in. But, yeah, in regards to, I have similar concerns, especially cornerback. And like you already mentioned, D-line, but cornerback too. I mean, it's already been a shaky spot for them. And usually, and maybe they can do this again this year, where they use their front seven with creative blitzes or coverages where it kind of eases the pressure off them. And granted, they still have Minka Fitzpatrick, who we all know is probably one of the best coverage safeties. I know, shout out to my friend Anik, who doesn't like him. But the other Trey Edmonds, he's been solid. I know he has been great, but I can hear Anik right now saying, no, he's terrible. So, yeah, and I think offensively is the biggest question mark, especially the run game. I mean, they've they've even said it, in training camp and reading articles and stuff where like they're gonna have an emphasis to run the ball, and I believe that because Mike Tomlin is an old school guy, defensive coach. He's gonna want to run the ball, and I think it will help their offense too in regards to taking the deep shots that they stop taking as the year goes on. But like. Yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't be shocked if this is the third team in the division. Like, I'm just not a lot of talent on the offensive line. Maybe their guard works out. Maybe, like we mentioned before, maybe they have guys come up the ranks. And maybe because they will run the ball more, it will help their offensive line be better because they were just so pass heavy as the season went on. But regardless, yeah, I'm not too confident this team will win the division again. But we'll see. We'll have to see. Maybe Ben just needed because remember he was coming off that elbow surgery last year, so maybe that affected him, and he says he feels a little bit better this year. So year 2 of Chase Claypool, hopefully they don't kill him because they're already. It seems like they try to find ways just to slow him down. With he only had. I remember quick Claypool rant. I think he had 40% snap count last year, and even Mike Tomlin was like, yeah, we don't want him to hit the rookie wall. So it's like, okay, so you make him hit the rookie wall by not playing him. It was just really weird. I mean, I guess this just goes to the fact they don't really trust their rookies sometimes. So, but regardless, that is the Pittsburgh Steelers.